you probably don't need a retreat. Most of the people I talk to who think they do don't. They need something the wellness industry hasn't built a word for yet. So they default to the word that's closest and they book a retreat and they fly somewhere. And 3 months later, they're back in the same chair with the same patterns and a slightly better tan. What they actually needed was a recalibration chamber, not a holiday with feelings, not a workshop, not an inspiration weekend, a chamber, a contained space designed with precision, with one job to let a nervous system that's been running under pressure for years finally decompress. And in decompressing, reorganizing. And in reorganizing, deliver a kind of clarity on business and life that you can't manufacture from inside your normal day to day week. I want to spend the next 10 minutes explaining what one is, a chamber, and what it isn't, what it actually does to you when it's built right. So, a quick note on who this is for before we go any further. I'm not talking to people who go away for a holiday with a wellness flavor, sitting by the pool with a mocktail. That's a great thing to do. Go on one, have a beautiful time. I'm talking to founders, senior operators, and leaders who've been running hot for a long time. People whose nervous system is doing 80% of the work of holding their company, their family, and their identity together, and who can feel that something is starting to fray at the edges. The kind of person who can switch on at will, but increasingly can't switch off, who can solve any problem in their head, but is starting to live up there and visit their body occasionally as a guest. Yeah. If that's you, keep watching. If it isn't, this probably won't land, and that's fine. So, why isn't a retreat the right thing? It's not because retreats are bad. Most are run by good people doing genuine work. The problem is structural. A retreat, as the format has evolved, is built around three assumptions that don't actually fit the people that I just described. The first assumption is that you're tired and need rest. So the design defaults to slowing things down, removing input, adding spa shaped activities. The trouble is, high functioning people aren't tired in the way the format assumes. They're compressed, and compression doesn't release just because you took the foot off the accelerator. You can lie by a pool for 10 days, and the compression is still in your body the moment that you stand up. Removing input isn't the same as releasing pressure. It's a necessary first step, but on its own, it does almost nothing. The second assumption is that experience equals change. The format leans hard on intensity, the big ceremony, the breakthrough, breathwork session, and the closing circle where everyone weeps. Sound familiar? Well, I run these in my own retreats, and those moments are real. We do them too. The deep breathwork sessions, the somatic releases, the unguarded conversations on day 4. They're part of what makes the work work. But intensity on its own doesn't change anything. A profound experience without the conditions to integrate it is just memory. By the time you've landed back at the airport, the body has filed it away with all the other memorable things, and the patterns you came in with are back online by Wednesday. The intensity isn't the problem. The problem is when the intensity isn't held by the rest of the architecture, the downregulation that precedes it, the integration that follows it, the container that makes it safe enough to be useful instead of just dramatic and a big event. The third assumption is the one I find hardest to talk about because it sounds critical and I don't mean it in that way. It's that the container is something you set up around the activities. Pretty location, good food, soft towels, love those. The container becomes scenery. But for the people I'm talking to, the container is the work, the degree to which the space is genuinely held by people who know what they're doing in a group small enough to actually track for long enough to let the body trust it, determines almost everything else. If the container isn't tight, the rest of the design doesn't matter. People sense it. They keep one foot on the brake the entire week. So that's the structural picture. Retreats, as a format, are mostly designed around rest, experience, and scenery. Yeah. The people I'm talking about don't need any of those things in isolation. They need something else, something deeper. The closest word I've found for this is a chamber. And think about the word for a moment. A pressure chamber is a contained space built deliberately, designed to do something specific to whatever's inside it. A decompression chamber is the same, except its job is to bring something that's been under pressure back to a safe state, slowly, in conditions controlled tightly enough that the transition doesn't damage anything. That's the closest analog I have found to what high functioning people actually need. Not a holiday, not a workshop, a chamber, a precisely built container whose only job is to let a pressurized nervous system decompress slowly and safely with enough days for the process to complete. I call what I run a recalibration chamber because the language matters. A retreat is something you go on. A chamber is a thing that you enter. A retreat is somewhere you visit. A chamber is something that does work on you while you're inside it. The container is the product. The location, the food, the views, those are conditions for the chamber to function, not the thing itself. And decompression, that's the verb, that's the mechanism. The pressure that's been held in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest, your sleep, your reactivity slowly leaves the system. And what's underneath it, the version of you that's been compressed out of reach for years, gets room to come back. And when that happens properly, transformation, awakening, breakthrough, all of those things you've heard 1,000 times in the industry, they do happen. They're real, but they're not the goal. They're what naturally arrives once the pressure is gone. You can't manufacture them by trying to. You can't shortcut them with a single intense session. They're downstream of decompression. Build the chamber properly, decompress the system properly, and the rest follows on its own. For a chamber to actually work, to actually decompress someone, 3 conditions have to be in place. Not 5, not 7, 3. And the order matters. Number 1, downregulation before anything else. The first 48 hours of a working chamber have one job: bring the body down out of its operating state slowly enough that it doesn't fight it. Most high functioning people arrive with their foot still on the accelerator. They want the work to start immediately. They want the breakthrough on day one. The chamber doesn't oblige them. The first 2 days are deliberately under stimulating. Long meals, moments of silence. The pace itself is the medicine. You skip this if you push someone into a big breathwork session on day one because it makes for a dramatic story. You don't decompress them. You get a fireworks display on top of compression that is still fully intact underneath. Downregulation is unsexy, trust me. It's also non-negotiable. Nothing else in the chamber works until it's happened. Number 2, somatic offload. But only once the chamber is sealed, once the body is regulated enough, the offload phase begins. Breathwork, somatic practice, conscious touch. The work that lets the system release what it's been carrying. The grief, the held tension, the unmetabolized stress of years of holding too much together. And this is the part that separates a working chamber from a dramatic one. Yeah. The offload only works when the container is genuinely sealed. Sealed meaning the group is small enough to track, the facilitators are experienced enough to read what's happening in real time, and the space is held tightly enough that the body believes it's safe to actually let go. When that's true, the offload isn't dramatic, it's specific. People leave the room a little lighter, a little more themselves, and the change keeps unfolding for weeks. The body's clock is slower than the mind's, and the chamber is built around the body's clock. Number three, integration, which is most of the chamber. This is the part everyone underestimates, and it's where 80% of the actual decompression happens. Integration is the conversation, the reflection, the specific question someone asks you in a skilled way that helps you make sense of what just moved. It's the facilitator noticing what you said on day 3 and bringing it back on day 5. It's the slow walk after a breathwork session where the meaning of what happened arrives in a sentence you didn't know you had. It's also the integration call a month later when you're back in your life and the old pressure is starting to rebuild and the patterns are testing you. Yeah, this is a part of the process. A chamber that doesn't have integration built into it isn't a chamber, it's a standalone event. A chamber without integration is a holiday with feelings. A chamber with integration is something that's still doing the work in you a year later. That's the model. 3 conditions: downregulation, then somatic offload, then integration, in order, held properly, 5 days minimum, because the body can't be hurried. If a chamber doesn't have all 3, it isn't a chamber, it's something else, possibly something good, but not what we're talking about. And here's what those 3 conditions are for. They're not the product, they're the mechanics. What they produce in order, in sequence, is this. First, decompression. The pressure leaves the system. The body finally believing it's safe releases what it's been holding. Then there's reorganization. The mind and the nervous system no longer running in defensive posture, settle into a more coherent state. Not a different person, same person, organized differently around presence instead of pressure, around signal instead of noise. And then clarity on business, on life, on what to keep doing and what to stop doing, what you've been avoiding, what's been quietly costing you, and what actually matters. A kind of clarity that doesn't arrive when you're inside the pressure and can't be manufactured by thinking harder. It's what becomes available after the system has reorganized. It's the whole point. And I want to share what decompression actually sounds like on the other side. Not because I want to convince you of anything, but because the words people use afterwards tell more than I could. One person, a founder, told me a year after a chamber that she had been in that the thing she had taken home was being free as a bird, the capacity, the ability to access that lightness again when she needed it, because her body now knew the way back. Another, a man with a family, said he came home, different father, quieter, more present, less reactive, in the small moments that actually make up parenting. His kids noticed before his wife did. Someone else described it as the tip of the iceberg, meaning the 5 days weren't the change. There was so much there, but the 5 days themselves were where the iceberg first showed itself. The rest has been surfacing slowly and constantly having this person evolve. And another guy who arrived deeply skeptical and explicitly wanted us to prove it before he'd felt it told me afterwards that the most useful thing was that nobody tried to prove it. The chamber held the work, and his nervous system did the rest. Those are different people, different industries, different starting points, but the shared thread isn't the magic of one experience. And I want to be specific about what you're actually hearing in those words. It isn't a mood shift momentarily, it's a nervous system that's reorganized around a different default, different baseline, and a mind that no longer is compressed and can finally see clearly things it couldn't see before. The different father is an emotional moment. It's clarity arriving in the most important relationship in his life. Free as a bird isn't a feeling, it's a system that's reorganized around presence instead of pressure and can find its way back there at will. That's what decompression, reorganization, and clarity actually look like on the other side. It's not a story, it's a different operating state. That's what a working chamber actually does. Now, if you've watched this far and something in you is leaning forward, I run one of these. It's called the Deep Dive Reset Retreat. 5 nights in Ubud, Bali. Small group, 2 facilitators, me and Sarah. Built around the 3 conditions I just described and built to do exactly what I've been describing. Decompress your system, let it reorganize, and send you home with a kind of clarity on your business and your life that you can't manufacture from inside your normal week. The next round is in July. There are a small number of spots left. I'm telling you that as a fact, not a sales pitch. The way it works is simple. There's no checkout button. If you're interested, you email me or you book a short call and we have an actual conversation, partly so I can tell you about it properly and partly so I can hear where you're at and tell you honestly whether this is the right chamber for you right now. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes the right answer is not yet, do this thing first. I'd rather tell you that on a call than have you fly to Bali and find out there. The link is in the description or just email me directly, dan@yes-and.com.au. If this isn't for you right now, that's completely fine. There's no urgency in this video for a reason. Chambers work because the people in them genuinely chose to be there. If now isn't that moment for you, watch the next thing I put out. Stick around. We'll meet again when it's the right time. I'll be putting more videos out over the next few months, going deeper into each of the 3 conditions, what down regulation actually looks like, what a sealed container is and isn't, and what the integration call a month later actually sounds like. If that's useful to you, subscribe and you'll get them when they're out. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. I'm here for it all together in deep work, rest, and play.